Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Rock. It's been a while since we've been here. Give me 1 sec to try and make sure everything's working. If I can find out. Says I'm live. Sorry, this is my first time doing it with this computer specifically, so let's see. Okay. Looks like it sounds good. Everything's going, so let's get right into it. Today we're going to be going over Loko's misunderstanding on Sasuke versus Orochimaru video. He has a video before this, which I might look at, all depending. I did a reaction with Batman, if you know who he is. If not, I'll post his YouTube below, along with Loko's when I get a chance. But yeah, let's just get into this.
So when I put out this video in which I detailed the reasons why I believe Heavy Sasuke is one of the strongest characters in Shippuden, at least up until the Kage Summit arc, it got quite a bit of backlash from both fans in the community.
Give it 1 second. Looks like we're getting a bit of lag.
And creators alike. However, I noticed that almost all of
the lag's pretty bad. I wonder what's causing that. I might have to. I don't know.
The people who have a problem with my head detailed the reasons why I believe Heavy Sasuke is one of the strongest characters in Shippuden, at least up until the Kage Summit arc. It got quite a bit of backlash from both fans in the community and creators alike. However, I noticed that almost all of the people who have a problem with my Heavy Sasuke scaling tend to repeat the same counter-arguments, and I kid you not, pretty much all of these counter-arguments revolve around Heavy Sasuke being weaker than the Sannin in some way. So basically, I decided to devote an entire video to proving why Sasuke just scales above the Sannin entirely. But before we can get into any of that, let's talk about the infamous Karin statement, the one that literally everyone brings up.
Okay, so I've seen up to this point on this video. It's actually part of the reason why I wanted to react to this one, particularly before I did the other one. But I know you know about the video that Bats made. And since you do, then you know for the fact that I specifically said, I don't care about what Karin says, I care about what Sasuke says. Now, I have a good feeling you're going to go into what Sasuke says, but you're already misrepresenting what the other side of the argument is saying.
So basically, in chapter 363, Karin says, "Pathetic, I can't believe you're the one who took down Orochimaru." And Sasuke replies to this by saying, "Orochimaru's illness made him weak, that's all." And some people interpret this to mean that Sasuke is admitting inferiority to Orochimaru and saying that he wouldn't be able to beat a full power Orochimaru.
I mean, he kind of is. I mean, if you sit there and say, let's take some random boxer. Someone walks up and goes, "I can't believe you beat that person in a fight." And you sit there and go, "Oh, it was because of their broken hands made them a lot weaker." You're not sitting there saying, "Oh, I could take a full power one, but this made it easier," or anything like that. You're more than likely saying, yeah, the fact that they have the broken hands is what made them weaker. It made it so I could overcome them. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to say otherwise, but let's see what you have to say on this.
When that is not what is going on in this statement. So Karin is mocking Sasuke for his performance in his latest fight, Sasuke responds to this by saying
not really mocking him, because she didn't see the fight. There's a chance that she just knows how powerful Dodora is, and therefore if someone like Dodora could bring Sasuke to like nearly being defeated, it wouldn't make sense for Orochimaru to give him like problems. That's more than likely what's going. Just because you sit there and say, "I can't believe you did this," isn't necessarily mockery.
Orochimaru was ill and therefore easier to defeat. This does not mean that Sasuke is admitting that he wouldn't be able to defeat a full power Orochimaru. I believe my interpretation of this statement is more likely to be true because it comes from the most obvious and literal explanation of the text itself.
So your argument is he's just saying, well, it just made him weaker, therefore he was easier to beat. So the only thing we get within the statement he says is he was weakened. That's all. So are you to sit there and say, well, it just made him easier? You're now inserting the idea that it made it easier, and not that it made it more possible. And I don't know where you're getting the reason it being easier. So if you could show like something that would like justify the idea of easier being there than at all, that would help out your point. But so far,
without adding any extra words or context whatsoever.
you added.
However, even if you don't accept this, in the worst case scenario, it would still be an equally valid interpretation.
No, you're making the argument. And this is another thing I don't like that people do nowadays, is they'll sit there and say, well, I've said this, but you're saying that, so they're valid, so they both can be put in. No, you're making a claim here. If you make a claim, it's your job to prove that claim. The fact that you've given us no reason to believe what you're saying over what we already believe is kind of bad. And the fact that you can't do that and you have to lean on the idea that it's an equal interpretation means that you know that you don't have any arguments to tilt it in your scale. That itself is an admission that you don't have the proper evidence to prove anything, in which case it also automatically takes out the idea of it being equal. Also, I'm assuming you're trying to convince someone of something here. So if that's the case, then again, you don't want to fall into the idea of it being an equal interpretation. Because again, it doesn't help anyone.
To the one presented in all of the counter arguments that I hear, which would make them null and void. Now, I will be bringing up this statement a little bit later on, but let's talk about why I believe Sasuke from the beginning of Shippuden is stronger than Orochimaru and the rest of the Sannin by extension. So whenever Sasuke confronted Orochimaru when he was sick in his bed, Sasuke easily pinned down base Orochimaru and forced the Great White Snake to emerge. Of course, right after
he didn't pin down Orochimaru, Orochimaru blocks his attack, but he was already like bedridden and like near dying to the point where like not Orochimaru, Kabuto went to go get like I think it was like stage 4 medicine. Orochimaru like really didn't want to do that. So the fact that the White Snake was forced to come up, even if I agreed to that, it wasn't because of what Sasuke did. It was because of the state that Orochimaru was in. It had nothing to do with Sasuke.
After this happened, Sasuke quickly dispatched of the Great White Snake and was actually disappointed in his performance in this fight. Now, Sasuke easily defeating the Great White Snake.
Well, again, this was like a massively weakened Orochimaru, and like you're showing here, like he had got pierced by the Chidori, something that we know has like paralyzing properties, and he apparently used the curse mark, so that's not exactly easy.
Is extremely important to my scaling because I honestly don't believe that the Great White Snake is sick or ill like base Orochimaru is. Both Kabuto and Orochimaru attribute the sickness to the host body that Orochimaru is currently occupying, which is actively rejecting him and rotting away. And for Orochimaru to use his body snatching jutsu in the first place, he needs to eject himself from the previous body and use his Great White Snake form. So if Orochimaru is no longer in the body that is actively rotting away, then he would no longer be disadvantaged.
So the problem, I see what you're going with here, but the problem with that is when you go and look at the description of the jutsu, which I do believe that you do show within this video, the way it works, the body snatching jutsu works, is it transfers his soul and his mind over to the other person's body. So even though that the Great White Snake is his true form, that doesn't mean that he's no longer using the body in some way of the other person. A good way of thinking about this is, what's the best way to do this? If you look at like a show like Bobobo, he's able to take the form of like robots, vegetables, and all that. His true form is a human form, but those other things are different forms that he can take, but it's still being done with that body. It's the weirder example, but I'm kind of struggling to think of something on the line, but for the most part, you get it. Just because he's in a different form doesn't mean he's not in a different body, and the way that the jutsu is explained to work doesn't justify what you're saying here, unless you have a reason to believe that he suddenly gets like a different body. In which case, I have to bring up the question of, if that were true within this scenario with Orochimaru, why wouldn't he just be within that Great White Snake form before Sasuke showed up the first time? Because he originally wanted to take Sasuke's body, but he was in too much pain and dying. So it's just a problem with like his soul like being rejected by the body, that it would just make sense to just hang around the White Snake form at that point in time. So not only does it not make sense with the example that you're giving, it doesn't make sense within the sense of the story.
By the sickness. And of course, this is actually consistent with the interpretation I provided for Sasuke's and Karin's conversation.
Sorry, last time I hope I have to pause it for a second, but just because it's consistent with what you're saying, it doesn't necessarily make it true.
So I'm going to talk about this more later, but Sasuke's intention from the very beginning was to defeat Orochimaru, steal his power, and then go fight Itachi. So when I mentioned that my interpretation of their conversation was that Sasuke was saying that Orochimaru was easier to defeat because he was ill, this would still be true for the argument that I'm presenting.
Not really.
If Orochimaru was not sick and was actually at his full power, Sasuke obviously would have had a harder time forcing the Great White Snake to come out and therefore absorb Orochimaru, which was his goal all along. So some...
Sorry about that. That was a cat.
So when I put out this video in which and of course, this is actually consistent with the interpretation I provided for Sasuke's and Karin's conversation. So I'm going to talk about this more later, but Sasuke's intention from the very beginning was to defeat Orochimaru, steal his power, and then go fight Itachi. So when I mentioned that my interpretation of their conversation was that Sasuke was saying that Orochimaru was easier to defeat because he was ill, this would still be true for the argument that I'm presenting. If Orochimaru was not sick and was actually at his full power, Sasuke obviously would have had a harder time forcing the Great White Snake to come out and therefore absorb Orochimaru, which was his goal all along. So some of you may be preparing to bring up Suigetsu's statement in which he says that they had just now surpassed their mentors in reference to Sasuke and the rest of Taka. And some people use this statement to claim that even EMS Sasuke is weaker than Orochimaru, but this statement is just a blatant mistranslation. I've talked about this several times on my channel before, so it's not even worth bringing up. Okay. Now, Suigetsu does make several other statements in reference to Orochimaru that people like to use, but he's honestly just an unreliable source in general. Suigetsu wasn't around to witness Sasuke's fight with Orochimaru, and there's no proof that he actually knew how strong Sasuke was when he fought Orochimaru in the first place. It's shown that Suigetsu is very fearful.
I mean, to be fair, he would know how powerful Sasuke is now, and he would have a rough idea on how powerful Orochimaru is, considering he was like a really big test subject for him, but...
and biased towards Orochimaru in this conversation, so he may not be thinking right. He has been traumatized by Orochimaru's experiments that he's been put through after all these years. On top of this, it's not in Sasuke's nature to refute what Suigetsu is saying anyways. He doesn't really care about what Suigetsu's opinions of him or Orochimaru are as long as he's getting the job done. Anyways, the Great White Snake is stated to be Orochimaru's true form, and Sasuke says that it is the result of all of Orochimaru's experiments over decades of research. Throughout all of Orochimaru's life, he was working towards obtaining this Great White Snake form. It is the perfection that allows him to achieve immortality. Since the Great White Snake is Orochimaru's true form, it's what he really is, it should still contain his soul and all of his chakra. Of course,
so does the body that he's currently inhabiting. What does that change?
Characters in the Naruto-verse amp themselves and their jutsu with their chakra. That is basically their life force, their stamina. Yeah. Therefore, if the Great White Snake possesses the exact same chakra as normal base Orochimaru, he should be just as strong and as fast as he is.
So does the sick Orochimaru that's currently in the bed, what does that change?
Of course, without the backlash from the sickness. So based off this line of reasoning, the Great White Snake should be...
Why is he not sick, though? All you said was, I don't think he's sick because I don't think he has the original body. But you haven't given us a reason to prove that he doesn't have the body of the person who would still be coming, the Great White Snake would still be coming out of, outside of the fact that it's a different form. But a different form just means to change shape, not to become something different.
Equal to, if not greater than, full power base Orochimaru, and Sasuke easily defeated this version of him. So that would just put Sasuke above the Sannin at this point in time. If you need even more proof, the body snatching jutsu that Orochimaru performs to keep himself immortal works by Orochimaru overflowing the victim's body with his own chakra. Yeah. It's kind of like a chakra tug-of-war between a Jinchuriki and a Biju. Orochimaru just forces his way in and suppresses the victim's soul and chakra.
Okay, the art of immortality is a method of keeping one's mind and soul anchored in this world for eternity. It's a Tensai Jutsu, a transference technique where I find a new body, then a new body to inhabit, then insert my mind and soul into it and take over it. So Orochimaru just flat out saying that he's no longer using like his original body or anything. He's now took in his soul and mind and put it into another body. Yes, he's taken over them, but that's the thing. It's them. He's taken over them. It's like getting a new car.
Sakura. Of course, it's stated and shown that Sasuke was able to pull out the Uno reverse card on Orochimaru and overpower his chakra in turn. And like I already explained, Shinobi and Naruto use their chakra to amp themselves and their various ninjutsu. Therefore, if Sasuke's chakra is just blatantly stronger than Orochimaru's, he's going to hit harder and run faster.
He didn't overpower his chakra in the sense of his chakra was more powerful than his. He overcame an illusionary technique with his Sharingan. We just flat out see that happen. He used, because if I remember correctly, and I do think you showed this in this video as well, Sasuke just flat out says that he's been training when Orochimaru wasn't aware. So Orochimaru just wasn't aware how powerful his Sharingan had become at that point in time. So he just got caught off guard by a technique that he didn't realize Sasuke had developed up to that point. And because the Sharingan is so potent, he was able to take advantage of them. If you want an example I'm talking about, the data book says that Kurenai has a genjutsu on the same level as Itachi. But because even though they're equal, Itachi's able to massively get the grade of her just because of his Sharingan. And it's similar here, except we have no reason to believe that Orochimaru's necessarily weaker at this point in time, even if you want to say they're equal.
However, there is one problem that I haven't talked about yet. Orochimaru got his arms sealed by the Reaper. So up until now, I've established that Sasuke is physically stronger and faster than Orochimaru, even at his full power. However, it seems like the Reaper Death Seal cut off a piece of Orochimaru's soul, or at least the part that represented his arms. Now, the question is, would this affect his physical strength or speed in any way?
I mean, it does.
Well, we've actually seen the scenario play out later on in the series whenever Minato gets both of his arms cut off during the war arc. So basically, Minato loses both of his arms to True Seeker orbs and he is unable to regenerate them. And as a matter of fact, whenever the Edo Tensei Jutsu is dispelled, we see that Minato's soul still doesn't have his arms anymore. So they were just removed.
Yes, but by the time both of his arms had got removed, and I'm pretty sure by the time he's got one arm removed, he's not actually doing stuff directly himself. He's used more of a supporting type and all that. The only other time I can think that he does something is when he combines his chakra, the Nine-Tails chakra, and all that with Naruto to create a double Bijudama to attack Jubito. It was either that or a double Rasengan. It was one of the two. But he didn't do that by himself. He was more supportive at that point in time. And by the time he's lost the other arm, the only thing I can recall him doing is having Lee throw a kunai to intercept a truth-seeking orb. Both of these things are not something he does. So the fact that Minato lost his arms, no one says anything, doesn't mean anything because he doesn't do anything.
Removed from him entirely, and neither the data books or anyone else in the series makes a note of Minato becoming weaker as a result of this, and there are no noticeable or visible changes to his performance during this time. So it seems like losing a piece of your soul in Naruto doesn't really affect how strong or fast you are. It's just a topic that we don't know enough about. So let me give you an example. Let's say that Orochimaru's soul is an apple pie, and the Reaper Death Seal cuts out a slice of that apple pie. Now, after this happens, there's obviously less pie than there was before, but the pie is still made of the same stuff. It's got apples, cinnamon, pie crust, and whatever the fuck else they put in an apple pie, but it would still taste the same, and it's still made of the same components.
But it would have less calories. It would have less sugar, less apples. It would have parts of it which would dry out a bit faster. It would be more likely to go bad or cool off because when something's cut like that, it starts to get more circulation. Its shape's now different. So I understand what you're going with, but there's so many more difference than what you're looking at than just what's in the thing. When it comes to Orochimaru, like you said, like part of his soul, that's part of his life force, like you said before, that's linked to his chakra and all that. But if he has less life force, then theoretically he'd have less chakra. If he has less chakra, then theoretically he'd be less powerful. These things just directly connect, even using your own logic. Also, why an apple pie allergy here?
So while Orochimaru has less soul and possibly even less chakra than he
And
used to
Red
have, it would still be as strong as it's always been. And we know
Why?
that the amount of chakra a person has doesn't necessarily equate to their strength. We see how
But you just talked about how having more chakra is used to make you more powerful. So you're just contradicting yourself at this point.
Kakashi has less chakra than Naruto in the Land of Waves, but he's still considerably stronger than he is.
That's
It's
control.
the chakra potency that matters, how
No,
strong your chakra actually is.
No, it's not potency, it's control. Because Naruto's chakra is still more potent than Kakashi's as well. He's also Ninetales chakra that's leaking into him. So it's still more potent. It's the control of it. I've said that like 3 times now, but
So basically, if the potency of Orochimaru's soul and chakra is as strong as it's always been, then Sasuke would still scale above the Great White Snake and base Orochimaru. But like the concept of souls in Naruto is pretty ambiguous, but I still think I did a good job of making my interpretation to be very likely, which would just support my argument. Now, some people may try to reference this statement in which it seems to say that
his notorious as a rogue shinobi, growing Sasuke rushes to Orochimaru's side in order to carry out his revenge. But the ninja who abandoned his village has not gone so far as to lose the pride of a powerful clan. Even as he trains under Orochimaru, he despairs, is malicious, and waits for the opportunity to revolt. Okay.
Sasuke waited for the right opportunity to take down Orochimaru. They'll say that my argument cannot be correct because Sasuke was just waiting for Orochimaru to get sicker so that he could beat him. But I have an alternate interpretation for this statement.
Okay.
I believe that it's equally likely that Sasuke was waiting for Orochimaru to be able to use his body snatching jutsu again. We know that Orochimaru can only use it once every 3 to 4 years. Of course, it was Sasuke's goal from the very beginning to take in Orochimaru and absorb his powers.
We actually don't know when it became Sasuke's goal to just do that, because originally his goal was to let Orochimaru take his body. It was only because he got the time and was able to actually get more powerful that he decided that he wasn't okay with that idea. But, I mean, realistically, you would have to prove, if you're going the route that I think you are, that he couldn't have used that at any other point in time, and that Sasuke knows the exact day in which he could do it. They both kind of go with each other, because Sasuke is already stronger than if he goes to fight him, then he'd be able to force the White Snake out anyway. I mean, at least if we're going the way that you seem to be going with this.
And he wouldn't be able to do that if Orochimaru is unable to transfer his body in the first place. My interpretation is supported by the fact that Orochimaru simply didn't have anything else to teach Sasuke. Like, Sasuke's final test was him facing off against a legion of shinobi without landing a single killing blow on any of them. He seemingly did this in base without any visible scratch marks or bruises on him. Orochimaru's tests and trials had simply become too easy for him, to the point where Sasuke was training in the background without Orochimaru even knowing.
Yes,
it's actually stated that Sasuke's power was beyond Orochimaru's imagination.
From the moment Orochimaru sees Sasuke's body with his Sharingan, he feels it is his dream vessel, and he anxiously waits for the day to administer the transference jutsu technique. But his greed comes crumbling down because the vessel he seeks is too flawless. The noble blood of that curses to Sasuke gives him a power that is beyond Orochimaru's imagination. As Sasuke captures the White Snake's powers, along with its poisonous saint, which thirsts for that blood. So the key here, and I see what you're trying to say, Sasuke not that one. The noble blood that curses through Sasuke gives him a power that is beyond Orochimaru's imagination. So he's just talking about like the potential that Sasuke could have as an Uchiha. He's not saying at this point in time that he is just that powerful, that it can't be like he can't imagine how powerful he is. You kind of have to read that into it.
Sasuke had become so strong that Orochimaru couldn't even fathom or conceive his current power level. Of course, all of this ties back into Heavy Sasuke because he's just blatantly stronger than he was at the beginning of Shippuden. Now, some people may try to claim that Sasuke only received some of Orochimaru's attributes and abilities instead of an actual strength and speed boost. The problem with this is that the data books heavily imply that Sasuke got stronger as a result of absorbing.
The White Snake's powers has given Sasuke the added benefit of a miraculous recovery.
Orochimaru. It stated that his poison resistance and regeneration abilities are only added benefits and not the true power that he gained from the White Snake.
I don't see that.
And I told you guys that I was going to talk about this earlier, but Sasuke tells Naruto and
I mean, you keep saying these things, but I'm not seeing those exact statements. I'm seeing stuff that's like vaguely within that ballpark, but everything you have to like add on to. Like that one didn't even like mention poison.
Sakura that neither he nor Orochimaru are strong enough to defeat Itachi on their own. However, immediately after Sasuke absorbs Orochimaru's power, he goes straight for Itachi. So this implies that Sasuke considers himself to be strong enough to take down someone like Itachi. However, Orochimaru himself admits complete inferiority to Itachi.
But Sasuke was also inferior to Itachi. Obito just flat out admits, like, if Itachi wanted Sasuke dead, he would have been dead. So whatever Sasuke thought is just wrong, which makes whatever point you're trying to make here kind of irrelevant.
He says that Itachi was the sole reason why he was forced to leave the Akatsuki in the first place, and we actually see a second fight between Orochimaru and Itachi later on in the series. Itachi easily defeats the 8-headed Hydra, which is stated to have surpassed Orochimaru himself. It's literally his strongest form. Therefore, if Sasuke finally considers himself to be ready to take on Itachi, he must also consider himself to be stronger than full power Orochimaru.
Or he just doesn't know how powerful Itachi is. And that would make sense because Itachi has never gone full out anywhere near where Sasuke has been.
And yes, while Sasuke doesn't know exactly how strong Itachi is, that doesn't matter as long as he knows that Orochimaru is weaker than him, which he does.
Or he's just overly confident in now his abilities to deal with Itachi. Because he knows Itachi's more powerful than Orochimaru, but he doesn't know how much more powerful he is than Orochimaru. So for all he knows, all he needs is the extra regeneration in order to help out with his chakra, along with Kirin. He doesn't know about Shushino and stuff like that.
Anyways, I've actually seen some people claim that Heavy Sasuke is nerfed and weaker than he was at the beginning of Shippuden because he's supposedly expending his chakra suppressing Orochimaru's essence.
I don't agree.
However, it's more likely that he's suppressing Orochimaru with his pure willpower instead, and let me explain why. Whenever Kakashi attempts to seal Sasuke's curse mark in part 1, he tells him that the seal that he placed is dependent on Sasuke's willpower and will only work if Sasuke has the will to make it work in the first place. And we actually see that this seal is never removed until Sasuke fights Itachi, in which he has Orochimaru and the curse mark removed from him entirely. Therefore, as long as Sasuke has the will to suppress Orochimaru and the curse mark, the seal will simply do it for him. He doesn't have to expend any chakra.
Wait, where do you get that from? I mean, yes, the will and all that with the curse mark, but that doesn't mean that Orochimaru being within him, like more of his like chakra, his mind and all that, it's just being suppressed by the curse mark just because the curse mark does that. You'd have to give like an actual reasoning for that. If not, then I could just dismiss it with no evidence.
And the reason why Sasuke lost control and let Orochimaru bust out of him during the Itachi fight was because he simply didn't have the willpower to suppress it anymore. Sasuke had just witnessed that his strongest jutsu, Kirin, was unable to defeat Itachi.
He was also out of chakra as well. So it could be a lack of willpower, or it could be a lack of chakra. If you want to go with the equal interpretation, then I can sit there and say that here. But I mean, again, you don't have any like evidence at this point to even suggest that the willpower is even a thing except outside the curse mark.
And Orochimaru was constantly whispering in his ear, asking to be let out.
He was.
So yeah, Sasuke shouldn't have to expend any chakra suppressing Orochimaru's soul and essence, but he should also still be able to tap into Orochimaru's power at any given time. And finally, there's one more argument that I'd like to address. People say that the Sannin are stronger than the 5 Kage who gave Sasuke a hard time at the Kage Summit. Therefore, Sasuke is weaker than the Sannin. And I actually used to use a similar argument to put the Sannin above the 5 Kage, but I've recently realized that it has quite a few holes in it. So first things first, the statements about Hiruzen and the Sannin being above the likes of the 5 Kage are pretty much exclusive to part 1 only. And there's actually only one statement in Shippuden that I could find about the Sannin being compared to the Go Kage, in which it said that they're actually equal to one another now. So based off of this change of pace, you could just say that the five Kage got stronger since part 1, and the statements about the Sannin being above them no longer apply. So further,
The only thing I want to say on this is Gaara was able to intercept A with his sand, and the third Kazekage is just flat out stated to be the strongest of the Kazekage. So even if we were to sit there and say like Hiruzen is stronger than the third Kazekage, and the Sannin are relative, then you could argue that the Sannin are still like, at least as a group, are above the Gokage. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I'd have to get back into it, reread the manga again to see like how that works out. But there's an argument there.
to support this argument, it's actually stated that the five Kage who attended the summit were the most powerful ninjas in the world. In all fairness, by this point in the story, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were already dead, and while Tsunade was technically still alive, she was in a coma after the events that transpired in the Pain arc, so you could argue that it doesn't apply to the Sannin. However, the Pain arc happened like right before the Kage summit, so this statement should still include Sage Naruto, who is blatantly stated and shown to be above the likes of the Sannin.
Sage Naruto isn't a consistent thing within the universe, though. He has to like actually gather up and all that. So Sage Naruto might be more powerful than all of them, but the fact that it's not as reliable could be a problem. It's the same reason why I say Rock Lee is higher than Sasuke during the Chunin exams, despite the fact that Rock Lee's forms aren't as reliable. Sasuke would probably win or could win if he could outlast him, but that doesn't make him more powerful. That's kind of the problem here.
So yeah, by this point in the story, the five Kage just have better scaling than the Sannin, so the counter-argument wouldn't even function. However, the statement that I previously mentioned may
Are you going to sit there and mention scaling and not give any scaling? That was weird.
not actually apply to Sasuke. Of course, Killer B does make a statement saying that Sasuke is the strongest opponent he's ever fought, but by now most of you should know that this is actually a mistranslation. But my buddy Thunder God actually got this statement retranslated recently, so big shout out to him. According to this retranslation, B is saying that Sasuke is tied for first place as one of the strongest.
Until now, all the guys that Sharingan is 1, 2 around competing because it's strong. Wait, until now, all of the guys that Sharingan is 1, 2 around. So he's saying he's like first or second place.
Opponents he's ever fought. Obviously, this could be referring to Minato, but in this case, he's most likely referring to his brother, the Raikage. So basically, B considers Sasuke to be on a similar level to the Raikage based off what he's seen during their fight. Of course, I do believe that this version of Sasuke that fought B is actually weaker than Heavy Sasuke because Jugo states that he is noticeably physically weak.
You seem quite affected physically, especially since as you should no longer regard to curse mark, you haven't healed from your battle against Itachi. Yeah, though I really didn't expect we'd have such a fight on our hands. He's just saying like with everything that happened, like his body just seems to have taken a beating. Like he's not saying he's like weak or anything. He's just saying that his body's taking a beating. His body's taking a beating.
Weaker than he was before since he had lost the curse mark and he hadn't fully healed from his fight with Itachi yet. Anyways, the only thing that A possessed that actually gave Sasuke a hard time during their fight was just his pure speed, which the Sannin just don't scale to. Sasuke actually forced the Raikage to enter his version 2 state and begin using body flicker just so he could combat the Mangekyo Sharingan in the first place.
I mean, he didn't necessarily have to do it to fight against the Mangekyo Sharingan. He just kind of did it because, well, I mean, the stories of the MS is kind of crazy, especially with Martyr and all that. So he's probably just trying to be safe. Because at that point in time, I mean, there was nothing that Sasuke had done that was able to hit A.
Place. And even with his speed advantage, it's still very possible that Sasuke would have been able to kill the Raikage if Gaara hadn't intervened. In conclusion, Sasuke's physical
Yeah, but A was just being stupid.
Capability should scale above the Sannins entirely even before he absorbed Orochimaru, and he also has the Hack's abilities to deal with them, such as Genjutsu and Kirin.
So, in note, Heavy Sasuke is stronger than the Sasuke that fought B because you believe that he was weakened to the point in which that would be a thing. Because you believe it, not good enough.
Of course, Heavy Sasuke would scale even higher than this, but if you want a more in-depth explanation of why I think he's so strong, feel free to go check out my previous video. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like on it. It really helps me out. And subscribe if you haven't already.
Well, that seems to be the end of this. I'm sorry about that cut in the middle there. I'm still trying to figure out how to figure out my layout and how to get everything so that way nothing gets messed with. I'm hoping I sound better because of the new mic. Shout out to Bats for helping me out with that. But yeah, I'm back. I'm going to try to start making more videos here. My Sasuke video, what if he had learned how to use the Sharingan at a younger age? That's still going to be made. I should be able to start making it, finish that up here soon within the next couple of weeks. For now, that is it. Kin's out. Bye.